Hey all, it's JDC again. You might have seen my two previous videos, you might not have, but this one is going to be about the Terminids. We're going to be going over the units, the structures, any flora and fauna. There are things about the units you'll need to know, such as weak points, what type of armor they have, and what attacks they have and what they'll be able to do with you. I've got the two Truth Enforcers behind me, so they're making sure that everything that I say is correct, and I've also got Ben with me, who's going to be giving some a little bit of extra detail whenever we talk about the units.
Hello everyone, pleasure to be back again.
So, to start with, we've got Scavengers. Now, from my experience of them, the only real risk that they pose is that they distract you from larger and more dangerous enemies, and also they can call in bug breaches. They only take about one shot to really kill. It doesn't really matter what weapon that you have. I'm sure, Ben, if you want, you can correct me on it.
Yeah, when you're building for the bugs, the Scavengers should really be an afterthought at every turning. I mean, they have 60 HP, so most weapons can one-shot them. Even if you are a terrible shot, they still only do 40 damage per hit, which, as we get into later, is really minute. It is also worth mentioning that they do have a weak point on their head. I know most of us probably won't be aiming for it, but it is there. It only has 20 HP, so even if you have a weapon that does less than 60 damage, I'm unaware of ones that do, you can still one-shot them. They really should just be an afterthought.
They're very easy to miss because of their small size, and yeah, the biggest attack they're going to have on you is calling in a bug breach. One thing we did forget to mention, although we did mention damage, is that as they can be forgotten about or they can be deprioritized compared to other enemies, if they do come up to you, that minor bit of chip damage might be enough to take you out if another attack has already weakened you.
Quite cute though. So the Bile Spitter is much like the Scavenger in the way that it is a very small chaff unit. It has the same health at 60, it has the same weak point as its head of 20 HP. However, as opposed to the Scavenger, which is melee focused, the Bile Spitter will vomit at you, doing a slow effect and also 15 damage straight up with a 4-second 3 DPS burn afterwards. It is also worth mentioning the fact that the Bile Spitters explode after death, dealing 85 damage and also applying the same burn.
Ben's the qualitative or quantitative guy. I just usually give opinions on what I've found playing, which I'm sure everyone's aware of by now. Hey all, so one thing we forgot to include in the video is how a bug breach actually looks when it's in the mission. So there should be a video to accompany this, but the basics of it is that there's only a small number of units that can actually do this. What happens is the unit will enter a specific animation to show that it's happening. Usually it'll do a few calls and there should be some yellow pheromone mist that comes up from it. There is a cooldown, so this can't continue happening, and the length of time that it lasts is also variable as well. But yeah, basically the higher the difficulty, the shorter the cooldown between bug breaches will be. But yeah, so one good way of preventing a bug breach is you can throw a stun grenade or a regular grenade at a patrol or try and eliminate a patrol very quickly. It's also quite easy to see when a bug starts to call in it, and you'll also hear it. You'll get an audio cue when it happens, as I said, so just keep these things in mind. Other good counters to a bug breach would be an orbital napalm strike, an orbital gas strike. Gas grenades are also really good against them, so these things are things that we'll want to put into our builds. So Pouncer then. So Pouncer, slightly larger than a Scavenger. They've got wings and they're able to jump. Am I right in saying they can evade shots, or they don't evade, Ben?
They don't take an active evasion technique as opposed to the Hunter. It is more just a passive. They are very jumpy and flighty.
And do they jump towards you, or do they jump around you to like flank? Because I'm not sure if it was a Hunter. It might be a Pouncer.
I believe they might just, by essence of them being quite fast and quite mobile, inadvertently flank you, but as far as I'm aware, they don't actively attempt to flank you. They are pretty much just Scavengers that haven't skipped a leg a day.
And then is their weak point the yellow wings, or their head, or what?
So same HP and weak points as Scavenger, so 60 HP on the body and then 20 HP for their head. I'm not aware of any wing weak point. However, I think they might still be a weak point, or not a weak point, a hitbox.
Okay.
I mean, they do also do the same damage as a Scavenger, so the comparison is still there.
The same applies to all these units that are not armoured, or lightly armoured at the very least, whatever. What you want to do is be bringing high capacity magazines, So, for example, the likes of the Liberator with a drum mag, or maybe a machine gun. If you're accurate and you've got a build for it, a Talon will do. Secondarily, or thirdly as well, you've got the Torture or the Flamethrower. Flamethrowers are going to be good against all of these, but they are limited by distance, obviously. That's why I recommend such thing as the Talon when you ever take a Flamethrower, because it's able to get those at range. But yeah, so let's just add that onto that one.
If it's a lone Scavenger, Bile Spitter, or Pouncer, you can also just melee them. They really are not that threatening.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right, the Hunter, the bane of divers everywhere. Their claws do 35 damage, which, while it's slightly less than the Scavenger, they have a combo with their tongue, which can stun you and do acid damage afterwards. Now, as opposed to the Pouncers, these guys do actually have an active dodging technique. And as opposed to the Scavengers, they have 130 health in medium and below, or 160 HP in challenging and above, with the same weak point on the head of 40 HP. So really, these are just the evading guys, which will be the main bulk of the Terminid force. They can also summon bug breaches.
And so basically, if you ever see me looking over, we've got a spreadsheet where we've done some digging on. And one thing that we need to mention about them, they've got a tongue attack. So they will stun you with it. It applies acid damage, and it also does slashing damage as well. So what they will tend to do is, as Ben said, they will use their pounce or their flight or whatever ability it is to flank around you while you're being attacked dead on by another unit, and use their tongue to obviously do it. It's slightly ranged. It's still, it's not as in melee striking distance, but it's a bit more of a range attack, so you have to watch out for that. And the last thing I'll say, the funny thing is, when I very started playing with Ben again, he told me the reason he quit the game originally was Hunters, wasn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely despise them.
Yeah, but yeah.
The 3-hit combo of 2 claws and then the tongue is more than enough to put a severe dent in your health, if not kill you.
Like most of these sort of weaker, lightly armored enemies, we're talking about them in isolation as one, but most of these enemies will come in packs. So you've got to consider that, we're talking about it in isolation. 3 or 4 of these things, and also different combinations of these units are going to be attacking you at the same time. So yeah, this is just something to be prepped for. Very rarely against the bugs are you going to be attacked by one thing at once. It's going to be, how do we say now? I wish I had a cool word to describe. I wish I had a cool word to describe. Ben,
Bedlam.
Yes, a bedlam. Yeah, of Terminids.
Predator Hunters are very similar to Hunters in their mechanics, with the same combo of claws and tongues. However, they can also spit like Bile Spitters or Bile Spewers, which can do 50 damage straight up and then apply an acid burn for 4 seconds of 3 DP and also slowing you. They are very dodgy like the Hunters, and they also have the invisibility capacity of Stalkers, which makes them a truly phenomenal threat. They do also have slightly more health than the Hunter, I believe.
Onto the Shriekers. So I don't think I'm wrong, but these are the only flying enemy with the Terminids. Is that right, Ben?
That is correct.
Cool. So far, until we get the flying Bile Titan, which there is stuff in the game files for apparently. So watch this space. If you're terrified of moths, this is going to hit you hard.
Shriekers are essentially flying hunters in the way that they are very difficult to hit, and they do hit you when you least expect it. Their attacks do an average of 50 damage per hit, which is more than a scavenger and a lot more than a hunter. Their health is only 80. Also to watch out for is the fact that the dive ragdoll after they get killed does 40 damage to you upon impact. So if you've got a swarm of them coming at you, duck and dive.
So now we're getting on to the main battle units of the Terminid army. These are going to be a lot more dangerous, visible on higher levels as well, higher difficulty levels. We're obviously always playing on D10, so we're used to seeing them all. Some of these you might be the first time seeing it. Warriors, they're unarmored, but they do a claw attack and they have a berserk form when you shoot off their head. This gives them a few seconds maximum, probably less than a few seconds, depending on the difficulty you're on and the type of enemy. A lot of these enemies that you'll see now, when they lose their head, they will rush forward at you and just start clawing at where your last known position was or your exact position. How they know that without a head, I have no idea, but it's just the game and the way it works. These will appear in groups as well, in patrols, so it's worth knowing that.
Warriors have an HP of 250 on medium and below and 325 on challenging and above. Their head is their weak point, which when shot off, as JDC just mentioned, will cause them to enter berserk mode, where they sort of forego any instance of getting home alive and they just chase. This can be quite threatening when they do 55 damage per attack, but after all, shooting off the head is fatal after a long time of them bleeding out. Their head can have 110 or 150 HP depending on difficulty level. Hello everyone, when we originally recorded this video the Spore Burst strain weren't available, so I am now here to rectify our exclusion of them. The three available types of Spore Burst Terminids are Scavengers, Hunters and Warriors. These Terminids are in most part identical to their non-Spore Burst variants, although they do have death explosions which do 25, 35 and 50 damage respectively, and they all leave the same burn as something like a Bile Spitter or a Bile Spewer, that being a 4-second 3 DPS burn, and slowing you. These Spore Burst variants can only be found on difficulty easy or above, and the higher difficulty you get, the more of their original counterparts they will replace, eventually turning up with all Scavengers, Hunters and Warriors being replaced by Spore Burst variants on Has 10.
So, we're moving on to the Alpha Warrior now. However, the caveat that I will put with this, which Ben, please correct me, these only get called in when an Alpha Commander or Brood Commander, obviously not a Brood Commander, that'll be a Brood Warrior, but when an Alpha or Brood Commander call these in, these can't show up just normally, can they, Ben?
Hi everyone, Post-Production Ben here. They're actually on Has 8 and above, not Has 10, sorry.
The only other variant you need to know about is a Bile Warrior. There might also be a Spore Warrior. We're going to do probably a separate video on those if they do appear again, because they haven't appeared for a while. It tends to just be the Predator strain. But yeah, a Bile Warrior is very similar to the regular Warrior, except they will explode on death like a Bile Spitter. And that will do an acid damage as well. Anything more on a Bile Warrior?
Exact same explosion as the Bile Spitter, just a bit larger I believe.
Now on to one of the first bugs that I had to learn how to counter is the Hive Guard. So the Hive Guard is, I would say, unique in the sense that it's one of the only bugs to have medium armor. So if you encounter them, you're going to need to A, navigate around them and destroy the areas that are unarmored, or you can bring, as I said before, something like the Talon, which is medium armor pen and basically unlimited ammo as long as you've got a decent gun control. 4 shots to the head on these things, or it might even be 3 shots to the head, is enough to take one out. I think it is, because the Talon does 200 damage. From Ben's notes here it says it's got 500 health, so I assume 3 shots is enough to take one of these out. But yeah, so they have a shield wall, so when they go into this shield wall state, their whole front basically will be protected by medium armor on their legs and on their head as well. That's when I'll take out the Talon and just shoot it. If you've got a light armor pen weapon, you need to navigate around it, or try, if you're accurate, you can aim at its underside, its underbelly, which is visible from the front but just a lot harder to see. Anyone?
Shoot its little hands.
Yeah,
exact same damage as the regular Warriors. Although when you start shooting at them, they will try and hunker down to try and reflect some of that damage off. So the Brood Commander does have the same slashing attack as Warriors, dealing 55 damage. However, their main difference comes in their health, with 800 for their main body and 200 for their head weak point. The main thing you want to watch out for with the Brood Commanders is their charge, which does 70 damage and can disorient you, leaving you easy prey for their little minions.
And then Alpha Commanders, they look very similar, to be fair. Well, not look very similar, but I mean in terms of the unit archetype they have. Again, both of these are going to be able to call up additional warriors from the ground, with obviously Alpha Commanders calling up stronger enemies, with it being a higher difficulty level. But yeah, similar thing, and these are both lightly armored as well, or at least unarmored or lightly armored. I'm never sure which of the two, but essentially any weapon will be able to take these out. Alpha Commanders, my favorite way to take them out. If you're accurate, again, you can use the Talon to 4-tap them in the head, and that will remove their head, and as long as there's a bit of a distance between you and those, it won't be able to get you in its berserk state. But yeah, most of the time it will have time to call in some of its minions. If you can get it before that happens in the head, they can't call them in if they don't have a head. so it's worth knowing. Hey all, JD here. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Turbo for doing the thumbnail for today's video. He does really great content and some Helldivers as well, and one of his videos has almost hit 1 million views about Invincible, a TV show. Go check him out. So Bile Spewers, so these things, so Bile Spewers and Nursing Spewers we're about to go over. Bile Spewers are able to spit at you when they get close. They have a very large hitbox because they have a very large like thorax at the back, which contains this obviously goo that they are able to spit at you. Bile Spewers are able to use kind of an artillery / mortar attack, but yeah, they are also able to claw at you if they get close enough. Oftentimes these will clump together with other units, which can make destroying the sacks on their back quite appealing because they're able to do damage to their own sides as well. However, their true weak point is their head / mouth, which I've found that 2 shots with the talon to the head is enough to take them down. Obviously, in the middle of a firefight, it can be harder to take them down with all the stress of what's going on. But yeah, I'd say most of the time that's an effective way of dealing with it.
Spewers do have a rarely seen melee attack where they try and poke your leg for 55 damage, but the Bile Spewer does 50 damage straight up with 100 DPS each second you're in the stream. It also leaves a 3 DPS 4-second acid burn. The death explosion from them does 300 damage and leaves the same burn. The Bile Mortar doesn't leave a burn. The area under the plates is actually a separate hitbox from the rest of the arse and has lower health, although it is semi-durable, so explosive weapon preferred.
Yep, cool. The Nursing Spewer is very similar, except it doesn't have the mortar attack. Nursing Spewers will be orange, Bile Spewers will be green. So different units will spawn on different mission types, which is something obviously that's worth noting. I think if you're in a Destroy Eggs mission, is that when Nursing Spewers show up then? Is that correct?
There are enemy seeds, so it's almost like a deck of cards as to which enemies spawn. I believe it might be on the egg missions. I'll have to put up the thing I found the other day on screen now for the viewers to see. It's very useful. Yeah, just shoot them in the head. Or shoot them in the arse with explosives.
You gotta shoot them in the head. Yeah, that's a movie quote. Cool.
Destroy the brain.
Yeah. Now that's Shaun of the Dead. I definitely that. Remove the head or destroy the brain. Stalkers. So this enemy will only appear on missions that have Stalker lairs as a secondary objective, and you can prevent them from coming by destroying the Stalker lair, which we'll talk about more later. The main attacks of these things are leaping both towards and away from you. Towards when you're not looking at it, and away from you if it's being attacked or being beaten. It will camouflage itself. It has like a kind of like a pearlescent skin to it, so you can still see the outside of it on parts, but it will be quite hidden for the most of it. It will do a slash attack, and it will also do a tongue attack, but it has massive knockback. So it will, oftentimes it may be able to knock you back into a horde of enemies, off a cliff, into acid, into a Bile Titan. Yeah. So if one approaches you, I would prematurely stim, knowing that you're about to be chucked away. If you've got experimental infusion on, that will also reduce the amount of damage you take, and that's worth noting. Sometimes when you get on the higher levels, even if you've got full health, knowing these things are going to happen in advance and stimming beforehand can be a really useful thing to do.
The Stalkers do make a very distinctive sound when they're approaching. I will try and find an audio clip for now.
Can you try and mimic it, Ben?
The Stalkers do also regenerate, so when they run away they will regenerate their health, so try and kill them on their first sweep. Predator Stalkers are essentially Stalkers, however they never retreat and they don't go invisible. They don't have the tongue attack either, which is the main reason why people fear Stalkers. There are a lot more of them on the Predator strain planets though, being Predator Stalkers. Their slash does slightly more damage than the regular Stalkers, but they have slightly less health to make up for that. The heads of these two are also the weak points with 175 health and only an armor rating of 1.
In here as well, as we've mentioned previously, there are a lot of going to be like horde mechanics involved with the Terminids. We want to just say now that using gas is a very good effective tool with these, especially when bug breaches happen. Orbital gas strike, gas grenades, although obviously if you've watched the Warbomb video you know that I get that quite late. But yeah, Orbital Gas Strike is perfect at dealing with the crowd control with these enemies. Orbital Napalm Barrage is also really good too. Flash or stun grenades, that I'll call them, after I was corrected on a video, is very useful at buying yourself time or giving yourself distance between an enemy. Also, there's no chance of killing yourself accidentally with them, which is partly why I love them. You can't always rely on a grenade to be able to do what you need it to do, whereas the stun grenades will always stun a very large radius around it, which is also obviously worth doing. With these ones as well, because Terminids are melee focused, using something like Incendiary, like a Torture or a Flamethrower, you can create proximity hazards in front of you, knowing that the enemies are going to be coming towards you. That's something I've found to be a very effective way of getting a bit of damage or killing the weaker ones before they can get close enough. Then switching to your Talon and taking out enemies that manage to get through the flames. That's really effective way of dealing with them. Yeah, minigun turret can also do really well here. But yeah, primarily for me, it's a 500 kilogram or an orbital napalm barrage.
Yeah, for a majority of these units, light pen is perfectly fine. It's only really the Hive Guard, the Bile Spewers, and the heavies which you need to worry about, which have higher than light. So for the vast majority, I'd say 90%, just light is fine.
This is now my favourite class of enemies because I always run anti-tank and because I really enjoy taking down heavy enemies. But essentially, what we're going to start with now is the Charger. So the Charger, the first thing we're going to say about them is they're very quiet. You need to constantly be on aware, looking around when you're faced against these things, because very often it'll just appear behind you, and if it's running, then you know it's usually going to knock you over. It's got a stomp attack, a trample attack, and a charge. So the charge is enough to ragdoll you away and sort of disorientate you. However, it can be stopped mid-charge with a flash grenade. Unlike the flesh mobs, which you'll see in our Illuminate video, they can be stopped mid-charge, which is what I really love to do. And I always I always bring a Quasar. I prefer Quasar cannon, so I'm going to call it Quasar. Or a Quasar cannon to the head if you're accurate. If you're not accurate, what you can do is bring like an auto cannon, for example, and destroy the armor on one of their front or back legs, which exposes its weak spot, which will be able to take it down very easily with any sort of high magazine, decent damage weapon. The head is obviously a weak spot if you want to destroy it with a heavy armored anti-tank weapon. Its thorax can be destroyed. The only problem is that it's not actually a weak point. When it is destroyed, it will slowly bleed out over time. But yeah, that's me on that one. Anything more from you, Ben?
The reason we say that it isn't actually a weak point is, despite the fact that it has no armor to speak of, it has, I believe, 80% durability damage. When considering that it has 950 health, taking an E80 doesn't sound so bad.
The only other variant we have, or the two variants that we have of that, sorry, are the Spore Charger and the Charger Behemoth. Now, Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about them?
Right, so the Spore Charger is much like the Spore Spewer in the way that it will produce a spore atmospheric condition around you, making it very hard to see. And it also makes them very obvious when they have spawned in. They have the same stomp, trample, and end charge as the regular Charger. However, they also have the death explosion of some of the previously mentioned units, this time doing 300 damage, 3 DPS 4-second burn afterwards. So being caught unawares by these, hastily killing it and then dying anyway, it's no bueno. Unlike the regular Charger, you can shoot the Spore Flesh on them, which has 0 armor to speak of. It is also 100% durable, if I'm reading my notes correctly. So take explosive weapons against them, really. So Charger Behemoths tend to spawn on higher difficulties than their regular Charger counterparts. The only major difference between the two is their appearance, Charger Behemoths having a horn-like growth. They also have 600 more main body HP, taking them to a total of 3000. Their weak point in the head also has 400 more HP at 1600. However, most of it is exactly the same. Just tackle them like a normal Charger, to be honest.
One of the most annoying units in the game, the Impaler. Very, very annoying unit, which can basically, I don't even think it needs active line of sight on you in order to spawn these in, because sometimes they've been obscured through obstacles. It could be wrong there, But yeah, oftentimes, you know, and I'm interested to know as well, what distance away will it always be? Or can it be from you before it can spawn it in, like 40, 50 meters?
Way too far. It used to be further. I used to be able to do it across the map, if you can believe that.
Yeah, so that's insane. But the Impaler then, so it's similar, it's bigger than a Charger, but it's got like this kind of dark amethyst color to it, like a dark purple to the shell, which is very strong and very armored. The only time it will expose a very obvious weak spot is when it digs its tendrils under the ground and comes out to try and attack you. You can shoot the tendrils, but that's never been a way I've ever tried to deal with them. The best way to deal with them is to shoot them in the head, and there will be a diagram on screen right now, but essentially there's 3 layers to this sort of head area that it's got. You've got the 3 tendrils that are in the ground, then you've got like a bumpy area that kind of looks like how do you even explain it? Like a lot of holes, like darker holes, and then just above that there's an orange area, a bright orange area, which is actually the head. One shot with a quasar cannon will be able to take it down from there. It has some visible sort of exposed skin underneath it and around the back of the legs, but not a very effective way of dealing with them again. Yeah, the attacks that it has, obviously the tendrils will come down, will come up, very quickly target you, and then try and lay flat to try and attack you. When they retreat back underground, they do shake as well and have quite a large hitbox, and it has a chance of obviously killing you if it knocks you into something there. And also a stomp attack if that tendril attack is on cooldown, then it has the stomp attack, which it'll try and get you with.
Yeah, so unlike the Chargers, its cousins, it doesn't have an exposed weak point quotation marks. Instead, you should try and strip the armor from the legs, any of them will do, or just aim for that weak point on their head. Destroying the tentacles isn't lethal for them, so you should always just go for the Trypophobia Nightmare or above that, and that will kill them after about 1250 damage at 75% durability. So always use explosive weapons against them.
And then we're on to the big boy. This is the mini boss that everyone will know about, that everyone knows, is the Bile Titan. So the Bile Titan is huge. We were originally going to do a scale factor here. I don't know if there's still plans to do that, we'll figure that out later. But essentially this is one of the largest enemies in the game. So it's very heavily armored, and it has very sort of spindly legs that it will try and step on you with. These are lethal, and every time there's a death animation for these things, you want to be as far away as possible, because even if they lightly tap you, like, you know, 2 old friends just bumping into each other in a club and you're just like, oh hey, I know you, this thing is gonna kill you if it does that. So I always go for a quasar to the face. Recently I did manage to kill one with a rail gun, but I don't want to give stats on that. I think it was 2 shots to the mouth, but again, you'll have to try these things out for yourself. Quasar cannon, 500 kilogram bomb, although the 500 is not consistent with this. When it, you know, sometimes it's taken 2 to kill it, sometimes it's taken 1. And also, the amount of Bile Titans that spawn inconsistency on D10, difficulty 10, is innumerable. So only having 2, or maybe even 1 if you're a newer player and don't have the ship upgrade, only having 1 500 available is not a consistent way to deal with these things. Yeah, it has an acid attack, which when you get within a certain range it will spray. Thankfully is quite easy to dodge if you dive away. When that is on cooldown, it will try and get close and then step on you. Sometimes it does 1 step, other times it will do a combination of steps, which is another one of its attack. You can destroy its thorax, which will stop it from doing the spit. The only problem is that the spit is kind of a double-edged sword, because when it's in the spitting animation, it's very still. So any anti-armor weapons that you have will be a lot easier to hit it than when it's moving. So you can destroy it, but obviously shooting its underside. But you may want to utilize that spit to try and lock it in an animation for a few seconds in order to try and take it out.
So the Bile Sacs have 750 health each. If you take out even one of them, it can no longer do its Bile Spew attack, and then underneath you'll see a soft fleshy inside full of gooey goodness that has 4000 HP and can be penetrated by any weapon. So if you're out of options, you can kill it that way. I wouldn't advise it though.
Yeah, and the Bile Spew that I mentioned, I should have said before, it does, again, Ben, you can do the AoE damage, I'll just say it slows you down as well. So you want to be out of that as much as possible.
Yeah. The big step does also have an AoE of 50, so it's not great, but it doesn't have to hit you to do damage.
So, starting with the Terminid structures, we've got Terminid nests. What these are compilations of different bug holes. You've got small, medium, large, and then mega nests. Small nests are probably around 2 to 3 bug holes, extend into medium, which can be anything between 3 and 5, and then a large nest will probably be around 6 to 8. Best way to close these is with either grenades, explosive crossbow, explosive pistol. I usually use a 500 to close them. You can also use drop pods. The mega nest will have, I think, up to about maybe 11 to 13 bug holes within it. It will also contain a mutated sample or mutated egg, which you'll be able to take back to extraction to secure yourself 2 different super samples plus 4 rare samples.
There will only ever be 1 mega nest per mission, and they only ever appear on D10. What's also special about them is even if you have the obscurement from the bug spores, you will still know where the mega nest is. It's just that massive. It does also have a different bug hole. Bile Titan holes are very similar to the regular bug holes, except they are massive because they spawn Bile Titans, and only Bile Titans, which is terrifying. So you should take them out first when you go for a mega nest, to be honest. Like, stealth around the side and then drop something in them. What's also important to note about them is even though the regular bug nest only has a destructive force requirement of 20 if you hit the inside of it, the Bile Titan nest has a destructive force requirement of 40. Just so happens to be the force impacted by a hell pod of any type. So if you drop some equipment on the very lip of the Bile Titan hole, it will destroy it, which can save you something quite expensive such as an Eagle 500 kg or an ultimatum shot.
If you're going to reinforce someone and you're going to try and destroy a bug hole with the hell pod, never land inside of the bug hole. Always land just to the side of it, because if you land in there, you can't get out. Once it's closed from the top, it's impossible. So you're just basically getting rid of reinforcements there. I've done plenty of videos on it. It's not fun. And if you have no guns to kill yourself, you can't even kill yourself and respawn. So yeah, always land, as Ben said, on the lip of it or as far outside of it. Never land truly inside of it. You're better off not closing it and being alive than closing it but being inside of it, because that's essentially just one life that's been wasted. Very important point with bug holes if you're closing them with your drop pod. Stalker lair then, like we mentioned before with Stalkers, they're tied to these side objectives. Once they look the same as a regular bug hole, if I'm not mistaken, Ben. But yeah, they will spawn Stalkers constantly until you destroy it.
Stalker nests only tend to have 1 or 2 bug holes. If they do have 2 bug holes, only one of these bug holes can actually spawn Stalkers. The other will only spawn a smaller Chaff Unit. However, to complete the secondary objective, both holes need to be destroyed. So you should go for both anyway. Just a neat little fun fact.
And the other side of it is as well, multiple Stalker lairs can spawn, because on D10 there can be up to 5, is it 5 or 6? Up to 5 or 6 different side objectives. Yeah, up to 5. So as a result, you can have multiple. So just because you've destroyed one Stalker nest doesn't mean you might have destroyed them all on the map, any Stalker lairs.
You can also see Stalker nests on the map. They are quite distinctive. And if you do take note of where the Stalkers are harassing you from, you can try and follow them back to their nest. Shrieker nests are very similar to Stalker nests in the way that they are secondary objective. They will appear as 3 large mushrooms in the distance which faintly glow and will constantly spawn Shriekers. They might actually have 2 mushrooms depending on the type. There's a number of mushrooms in the distance which faintly glow. They only have light armor, however they are 100% durable, so you should really hit them with explosive weaponry to take down their 2500 health. 2 quasar shots per mushroom, or EAT shot per mushroom, is enough.
The other thing to note as well is that if you don't have any of these stratagems, which you will do, when you get close you're able to call down a hell bomb that will be able to destroy them. Hell bombs only have a maximum range of 25 meters, so try and get it in the center of all of them. If not, you'll have to call down multiple, and then you'll have to fight off hordes of enemies while also Shriekers are spawning above you, which is a problem.
Yeah, make sure not to call down the hell bombs so they get intercepted by the mushrooms themselves. That is very irritating.
Yeah, and hell bombs can be destroyed and will be targeted by enemies as well. So not only will you have to wait for the cooldown to expire, you won't be able to obviously you'll have to run the risk of the Hellbomb itself being destroyed. The other side of it is, as well, is that even once a Hellbomb is armed, enemies will still target it. So once you've armed it, get away, because if an enemy destroys it prematurely, it's over. Next up is a Spore Spewer. So I always recommend, as long as it's not like a forest planet and very difficult to see, I always recommend hitting these from a distance. Usually it's 2 Quasar shots, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 1 recoilless. But yeah, or you can use a Hellbomb when you get close. It's a similar effect that we talked about with the Spore Charger, where they will emit these spores around them. And then obviously once it's destroyed, it'll be a lot easier to see the map. So very good to take these out early on to help you going forward.
You can't use a Hellbomb on the Spore Spewers. You
Oh,
don't get the
okay.
option.
Never mind.
They do also have the exact same stats as each individual Shrieker nest mushroom. So they are just a third of the difficulty ready to take out.
Latest thing to be added to the bug structure is an Infested Tower. I thought they look massive. They're basically city map towers with a bit of like bug fauna around it. It looks very difficult to take out, but 1 recoilless rifle shot from the opposite end of the map is enough to take them out. Don't feel the need to call down a Hellbomb and risk, getting close to these things. You want to stay back.
I believe they might have changed the nest from the Mega Shrieker nest skyscraper from 2,500 to 15,000. So I believe you can no longer one-shot it with a recoilless. It will take something like 4 shots, I want to say. Oh, they do have light armor, 100% durability. Just call down a Hellbomb if everything else goes to shit.
This is the other thing that's worth noting, which we should have mentioned about the likes of like mega nests. Well, with smaller nests, usually 1/500 in the correct place will be able to take out, between 4 and 5 nests. Sometimes it can take longer, but a well-placed 500 will be able to do that. With with mega nests, going inside of a mega nest is a very risky proposition. What I recommend doing is using a hover pack to climb up the different Terminid structures or Terminid biomes, just rocks, and get angles onto the bug holes so that you're a bit safer, or trying to take them out from the outside before working your way in, or throw in maybe an orbital napalm barrage in there to soften everyone up. It's not likely to close many holes because of the nature of the explosive. It doesn't happen for me, but yeah, very rarely running inside of a mega nest is going to be a good thing, so just worth noting with that one. Terminid Eggs are a side objective, or main objective, on the missions. Very easy to destroy. They glow as well, so they're very obvious to see. Usually a 500 or an orbital napalm barrage called in on them is a very good thing. Any weapon can destroy them, so they're not a big risk at all, really.
I have nothing more to add about the eggs other than the fact that you might be asked to destroy about 60 of them per nest. Yeah. If you're spending a few bullets on each one, it's a little bit of a drain on your resources, so just try and use as much AoE as physically possible.
Now it's time to talk about the most destructive thing in the Terminid arsenal. A Terminid Plant. Looks unassuming. No, I'm just kidding. It only emits light, but it is annoying, and it can be one-tapped with any weapon. But yeah, so these things, as you get closer to them, they will start to emit a very strong light, which will stop you from seeing around. It's like headlights on a car. It will be the only thing that you see. You can one-tap them, and then you can see around again, so it's great. The second thing is a bug mine, or like a caltrop or bile flower they're called. These things, when you step over them, they will explode and slow you down a little bit. This can be mitigated with the vitality enhancement, which obviously will mitigate the damage, and then the slow can probably be mitigated with one of the other boosters, but we don't use that booster, so I'm not sure about it. Any more to say, Ben?
Bug mines are an absolute nightmare when you're driving a car because they can flip it very easily if you drop speed.
Very good.
So just
point.
try and avoid them, really. Or shoot them. Shoot them.
Hey all, I hope you liked the video, and more importantly, I hope you learned something from it. Please like and subscribe to help support me and Ben and what we do. If you don't, you will be reported to the truth enforcers behind me. As always, for Super Earth.
See you soon, guys.